Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a bit of a beast. It's technical, it's very specific, but if you work in the web world, it's arguably one of the most important blueprints you can look at.
Mhm.
We're diving into the Acquia Certified Site Builder D10 exam.
Blueprint is the perfect word for it.
And look, the mission here isn't just to, help you memorize A, B, C, or D. If you're listening, maybe you're taking the test, sure. But it's more about understanding how Drupal thinks. We have the exam domains, the practice questions, and what really stood out to me right away is that this exam, it just doesn't seem to care about code.
It doesn't. And that is a huge misconception. People hear Drupal and they think PHP, command lines,
Yeah.
The matrix code falling down the screen.
Right.
But a site builder in the Drupal world is a very specific role. It's someone who can architect a massive enterprise-level system without writing a single line of PHP.
Wow, that's a pretty bold claim. You can build an enterprise site without code.
You can build the structure, the logic. That's what this exam tests. It's all about your ability to use the user interface to solve really complex data problems. It's about clicking the right buttons, in the right order to build something that's meant to last.
So let's look at the landscape then. We've got the breakdown of what actually matters on this test. And when I saw the weighting, I honestly thought there was a typo in our source material.
Let me guess. You looked at section 2.
I did. Content modeling. It's just sitting there at 28% of the entire exam.
Wow.
Almost a third. Meanwhile, something like understanding Drupal, the basics is just 12%. And security, which feels huge, is only 8%. Why is content modeling the absolute heavyweight champion here?
It's the single most important signal in the whole syllabus.
Yeah.
If you take one thing away from this deep dive, let it be this. Drupal is a content management system, right? The emphasis is on content. If you get that model wrong, if you don't structure your data correctly from day one, it doesn't matter how pretty your theme is. It doesn't matter how fast your server is. The site is fundamentally broken.
So that 28% is the exam's way of just screaming, do not mess this part up.
Precisely. You can fix a bad display setting in, 5 minutes? If you have to fix a bad content model 6 months into a project, you're talking about migrating data, you're rewriting all your logic. It's a disaster. The exam weights just reflect the real-world cost of getting it wrong.
It's all about consequences.
It is.
Okay, so we are going to spend a good bit of time on that 28%. But before we get there, we have to start with the raw materials. The exam kicks off with understanding Drupal, and the first hurdle is just knowing what tools are even in your toolbox.
Yeah, the distinction between what you have out of the box and what you need to go get.
Right. There's a question in the source material about modules. It asks about modules that are not part of the initial Drupal installation but are downloaded from the community website. And the options are internal, system, contributed, or core.
This is a vocabulary question, but it's loaded with philosophy. The answer is contributed.
But why the big distinction? If I install an app on my phone, I don't really care if it came with the phone or if I got it from the App Store. It's just an app. Why does Drupal care so much about core versus contributed?
It's all about who is responsible for it. Core is the software that's maintained by the core Drupal team. It is rock solid. It's guaranteed to work when you install it. It's the engine, the transmission, the wheels.
And contributed.
Contributed means it was built by the community. It might be amazing. Some of the best parts of Drupal, like Pathauto or meta tag, are all contributed, but it's external. It's like the aftermarket stereo you install later. The exam wants to be sure you're stepping outside the safety of that default installation.
So if something breaks in core, it's on Drupal. If something breaks in contrib, it could be the maintainer's fault, or, maybe you just set it up wrong.
Exactly. And knowing that changes how you maintain the site, which we'll definitely get to later in the workflow section.
Okay, let's pivot to that huge 28% chunk, content modeling. We've established it's the foundation. Source material gives us a scenario about building a product section. A price, a description, an image. The question asks, which feature allows you to do that?
And the options they give you here, they usually throw people off. Things like blocks, regions, views.
Right. The answer is fields. But let's play devil's advocate for a second, because I think this is where beginners get really stuck. Why do I need fields? Why can't I just have a big box called body and just type price, $50, and paste a picture right next to it? It looks the same to the user.
That is the million-dollar question. Visually, yes, it looks the same.
Yeah.
But architecturally, it is night and day. If you just put everything in one big text blob, the computer doesn't actually know what any of it is. It's just text. It's pixels.
It's just ink on the page.
Right. But if you use a field like a specific price field that's set as a number or an integer, now the database knows this is a value, and suddenly you can do things with it. You can say, show me all products under $50. You can say, sort this from high to low. You can't sort a text blob.
So fields turn stuff into data.
That's the key insight right there.
Yes.
Fields create structured data, and structured data is reusable. You can take that price and show it on the product page, and then reuse that exact same field to show a little price tag on a teaser card or feed it into a Google Shopping API. You can't do any of that if it's trapped in a paragraph.
That makes so much sense why the exam hammers this so hard. You aren't just pasting text, you're designing a database schema. You just don't realize it.
You are. You're defining the DNA of your content, and the exam expects you to know which field type to use for which data. Don't use a text field for a date. Don't use a number field for a phone number.
Wait, why not a number field for a phone number? It's all numbers.
Because you don't do math on a phone number. You're never going to add two area codes together. A phone number is technically a string of characters that just happen to be digits. That's the level of detail a site builder needs to be thinking about.
Okay, so we've got our product bucket. That's the content type. We have the slots inside it, which are the fields. Now we need to organize all these buckets. This brings us to section 2. Organizing the mess, the taxonomy system.
A word that scares people, but it's really just a fancy term for categorization.
The question here is about the vocabulary. It asks, what is the specific role of a vocabulary? Is it for translations, visual style, or, and this is the answer, is it a container for a group of related terms?
Think of it like a filing cabinet. The whole taxonomy system is the cabinet. A vocabulary is one specific drawer. Let's call it fruit.
Okay, fruit is the vocabulary.
And inside that drawer, you've got your folders. Apple, banana, orange. Those are the terms.
So why does the exam make such a fuss about this container idea? Why not just have one big list of tags? Why do I need the container?
Context. Apple could be a fruit. Apple could also be a tech company. If you just have a giant, messy bucket of tags, things get confusing fast. By putting one apple inside the fruit vocabulary and another apple inside the brand's vocabulary, you keep your data clean. The exam needs to know you understand that hierarchy. Vocabulary contains terms.
It's all about keeping the data strict and separate.
It is. And notice the wrong answers in the question. It's not for user lists. It's not for translations. Taxonomy in Drupal is strictly for classifying content. That's its job.
Speaking of users, let's talk about the people using the system. Gatekeeping. This is another area where the logic can really trip people up. We have users, we have roles, and we have permissions.
The holy trinity of security.
And the question asks about the relationship between them. How does the chain work? Do I give the user a permission? Do I give a role a user?
This is a logic puzzle that trips up so many beginners. The correct flow, and you should absolutely write this down if you're taking the test, is permissions are assigned to roles, and roles are assigned to users.
Okay, let's break that down. Why can't I just go to Steve in the system and check a box that says, can edit homepage?
You could design a system that way, but it's a complete management nightmare. Imagine you have 50 employees. If Steve leaves and you hire Sarah, are you really going to sit there and check 500 individual checkboxes for Sarah?
Oh, definitely not. I can barely remember my own passwords, let alone 500 settings for Steve.
Exactly. You want to create a role called editor. You spend time, once, defining everything an editor can do. They can edit content, sure, but they can't delete users. Then, when Steve leaves, you just take him out of the role. When Sarah joins, you just drop her into the role, and boom, she inherits all those permissions instantly.
So the user inherits what the role allows.
Yes, it makes the system scalable. The exam is checking if you understand scalability over quick fix. Assigning permissions directly to a user is a quick fix. Assigning them to a role is architecture.
I'm really starting to see a theme here. The Site Builder exam is actually the don't paint yourself into a corner exam.
That is a very, very accurate title. Every question is basically asking, what's the way to do this that won't make you cry in 6 months?
Right, avoiding tears is ideal. So we've modeled the data with fields. We've organized it with taxonomy. We've secured it with roles. Now for the part the actual website visitors care about, seeing the stuff. Section 3, displaying content.
The visual layer. Finally.
We have two main players here in the exam source material, blocks and views. And I feel like beginners get these two mixed up constantly because, you know, they both make stuff show up on the page.
They do, but they solve fundamentally different problems.
Okay, let's use the scenario they provided. You need to display a specific piece of text, like a copyright notice in the footer, on every single page of the site. What do you use?
The answer is a block.
Why a block?
Because blocks are they're static units of placement. Think of a block like a sticky note. You write something on it, and you stick it in a specific region of your website, like the footer or the sidebar. It just sits there. It doesn't change based on who's looking at it usually. It's just put this content here.
So if I want my logo on the top left, that's a block.
Typically, yes. If you want a Donate Now button on the sidebar of every page, that's a perfect use for a block.
Okay, now compare that to the next scenario. I want a latest news section on my homepage. I want it to show the 3 most recent articles, but only if they're tagged, featured, and I want them sorted by date.
Can you do that with a sticky note?
I mean, I'd have to write a new sticky note every time we publish an article. That sounds awful.
Exactly. That is a dynamic query. You're asking the database a question. Hey, database, give me the latest stuff that matches these rules. That is a view.
So views are the engine.
Views are essentially a visual user interface for writing database queries. If you know SQL, a view is just select from node or type article, order by date. But you don't write the code, you click the buttons.
That's incredibly powerful.
It's the superpower of Drupal. Most other systems, you need a developer to code a recent news widget. A Drupal site builder can build a complex, filtered, sorted list in like 3 minutes using views. The exam wants to know you get that difference. Static placement, use a block. A dynamic list, a filter, that's a view.
Got it. Now, there's a third player that's entered the chat recently, and the exam has been updated to include it, Layout Builder.
The modern era.
And the question asks about its primary advantage. It's not about speeding up the database. It's not about generating content. It is about creating custom page layouts using a visual drag-and-drop interface.
This completely changes the game for the site builder.
This feels a little bit like Drupal catching up to, the Squarespaces of the world.
In a way, yeah. For a long time, if you wanted the image on the left and text on the right, you had to call the beamer. You had to touch CSS code. Layout Builder puts that power in the browser. You drag the block, you drop it. 2 columns, 3 columns. It empowers the site builder to own the presentation of the content, not just the data itself.
So if I have a really complex case study page where I want a quote over here, a gallery over there, and a video at the bottom, and every case study needs to look different.
Layout Builder is your best friend. You can design each piece of content individually.
Okay, so we have the full stack now. We have structure, security, and display, but we're not done. Section 4 is all about the professional workflow, and this is the stuff that really separates the hobbyist from the pro.
The boring stuff that saves your job.
The source has a question about moving your work. You've built this amazing site on your laptop on a dev server. Now you need to get those changes, that new content type, that new view up to the live website. How do you do it?
The wrong answer is open 2 windows and just copy-paste the settings.
I'm not proud of it, but I have done that.
Well, you've all been there. But it's so dangerous, you make typos, you forget one checkbox, and suddenly your live site is behaving totally differently than your test site. The correct answer, the only professional answer, is configuration synchronization.
Can you explain that mechanism? How does it work if we're not writing code?
Well, remember how we said Drupal doesn't require you to write code? Behind the scenes, every time you click Save on a view or a field, Drupal is writing a little text file for you, a YAML file. That is the configuration.
That's the blueprint.
Exactly. So configuration synchronization just means you export that blueprint from your dev site, you move those files over to the live site, and you import them. It guarantees that the live site is an exact mathematical clone of what you built. There's no human error.
It prevents cowboy coding.
It does. And in an enterprise environment, which is what Acquia certifies for, you cannot be a cowboy. You need audit trails. You need to know exactly what changed and when. The exam is testing if you know that this system exists and that you are supposed to use it.
Now, speaking of things going wrong, we talked about those contributed modules earlier, the community code. Sometimes they have bugs. It just happens.
Software is written by humans, and humans make mistakes.
So the source asks, where should a site builder go to find and report a bug in a contributed module? Do you email the developer? Do you tweet about it? Complain on Reddit?
The answer is the Drupal project issue queue.
This feels like a cultural test as much as a technical one.
It is. Drupal is open source. There's no customer support hotline you can call. The issue queue is where the work gets done. If you find a bug, you don't just complain. You search the queue first to see if someone else already found it. Maybe there's a patch waiting. If not, you open a ticket.
You become part of the solution.
That's the expectation. A certified site builder isn't just a consumer of the software. They're a participant in the whole ecosystem. Knowing how to navigate that queue is a critical skill. If a module is broken, checking the issue queue should be your first reflex.
And finally, the topic no one wants to deal with, but everyone has to: security updates.
The inevitable.
A security update drops for a module you're using. It's marked critical. What's the best practice? The options are things like update immediately, wait a week, delete the module. But the correct answer is apply it as soon as possible after testing. That after testing part feels like a trap. If it's a security hole, shouldn't I just patch it instantly? Why would I wait to test?
Because a security patch changes code. And whenever you change code, there is always a non-zero chance that you break something else.
You fixed the lock on the front door, but you accidentally glued all the windows shut.
That is a perfect analogy. Imagine you apply a security patch to your e-commerce module on the live site. Great, the hackers can't get in, but oops, the checkout button stopped working because the patch changed a variable name. You just lost way more money from the downtime than you ever would have from the hacker.
So the professional workflow is panic a little bit, but then go to your dev site, apply the patch there, make sure the site still works, then push it to live.
Correct. Speed is important. You don't want to leave that door open for weeks, but stability is paramount. That balance is what the exam is testing.
Thanks for diving in with us.
Happy building.